Hi everybody, Beth here from Access Paranormal for this week's I Want to Know, which is all about cemeteries. It's really interesting sometimes when I get questions coming through that, I sometimes think, oh, this question's going to be really broad. It's not really going to be a huge interest to a lot of people. And then I get lots of comments when I post about it. And then there are other ones like, oh, this is really meaty. And there's like, not so many comments, so it really is up and down. So again, I said, again, use the comment section down below to let me know what your thoughts are in this particular topic. Hi Amanda, hi Brent, good to see you guys. Now, at the time of this recording, it is, we had a minor storm just go through. So here I am praying to the internet gods to hope that they don't drop us out. It would be a bit of a shame, to say the least. Hey, Mandy, good to see you, gorgeous. So hopefully, if anything, the storm's just gone through, but I'm hoping you can actually hear the thunder occasionally, because that would be super cool. Because I won't say it's like a soundtrack or anything, and then it's actually nature's soundtrack. Finally caught me live. Yes, Amy, so good to see you, gorgeous. Sort of see you, but yeah, you get my drift. So yes, cemeteries. Before I go into the topic itself, there is a difference between cemeteries and graveyards. Sorry, messages come through about me winning a prize from Coles. I think it's a scam. Anyway, so yes, difference between cemeteries and graveyards. Now, graveyards were originally what was used around about the 7th century. And the reason why was because you were always going to be buried on church grounds. So it was always on a churchyard. So the churchyard had a graveyard. But of course, more people dying, obviously the plague, things like that were happening at the time. Around the 17th and 18th century, it got to the point where they actually had no room to bury people. So they literally had to make these areas specifically just for burying the dead, which are cemeteries. Hi, Cara. Hi, Glenn. Oh, cool. Good to see you, buddy. Hey, I hope you're settling into your new place pretty well, Miss Cara. So yes, cemeteries, what's the go? I mean, it's when you start looking at paranormal investigating, a lot of people will suggest go to a cemetery, find a cemetery, check it out, see if you can find something there, that kind of stuff. It's free. It's a public area. But of course, as we know, don't trespass. Go in the times when it's available. Of course, if it's only during the daylight hours, then that's the times you're allowed to go. Don't go at night time and get caught or risk getting caught for lots of reasons. A, getting yourself into trouble. And B, I'm thinking that's not hail. It's just Australian in this type of time of year. Yeah, that kind of stuff. It's you don't want to get yourself into trouble. And also at the same time, it doesn't leave a good reputation with anybody else within the paranormal as well. Not to say they should always do everything just on that proviso, but again, it's not good to do that as well. So always make sure if you're ever going to go to a cemetery and or a graveyard, do so with the permission of the people that have that are running with it, which is usually councils and or the church. But yeah, often it is almost like a training ground for paranormal investigating. Cara says, I love cemeteries as well. Hey, Rob, good to see you, lovely. Oh, good. Oh, Julie, I'm glad that you could join as well. So, okay, we'll get stuck into it. And again, use the comment section down below. Let me know what your thoughts are as well. If you had any experiences, what advice you'd like to give as well. If you agree, if you don't agree, anything like that, comment section. It's your friend. So first thing, as I said, the difference between cemeteries and graveyards, but also there's a gentleman I know, and you probably know of him as well. His name is David Wells, and he came to Australia, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and he's a well-known medium from a show called Most Haunted. And when he came over for the first Paracon, which is the very first one in Sydney, very small and quaint event, I asked him this kind of question because I'm interested. I'm about as psychic as this Post-it note pad. And I said to him, look, what's the go? Like, what's with cemeteries and this kind of stuff? What do you believe? Like, what can you see or sense? And he said, why would you hang around somewhere that's decaying? Why would you, if you could go anywhere around the world, why would you stay around your body? And it's the first time I thought, yeah, what? That's, yeah. So that's something I've kept in mind over the years. In time. Also, I know a couple of people who've posted a couple of comments as well and said that one person said that when they've attended and gone to a particular gravesite or cemetery, they found that the ones that are more a colonial date age time frame tend to be have some sort of interesting experiences with that. So I thought, well, that was interesting to mention for those who are watching this from other places in Australia. Sorry, out of Australia. Colonial basically just means the early European history of Australia. Obviously, we have a much longer history with Indigenous Australians, but this is the early European history side of it. So when we actually started to bury our dead the way that the British would as well. So that's our colonial period. And this particular person has found those kinds of cemeteries. They tend to get a bit more activity than less than the newer ones. I mean, obviously, you can probably think maybe it's because people have been visiting for longer. The intention of people visiting there for longer could also be the case as well. Is it the same with old buildings where, the longer that something's been around, the chances of something being more haunted possibly because it's got more historical significance? Who knows? Throwing it out there, because technically, as we know at this time, energies, spirits and ghosts haven't been proven by science or exist, but we're talking hypothetically. If they did exist, what would be happening as well? Karen says that for me, I've always thought cemeteries and graveyards are great for history, but not for anything else. Yeah, as I said, it's we'll get into that a bit later on about the ethics of visiting particular places. So it's not just from a trespassing perspective, but also from an ethics perspective as well. Excuse me. Oh. So, of course, there's that as well. Currently, at the moment where I'm working in Sydney, it actually used to be the site of the very first graveyard in Sydney. And I mean graveyard is in European graveyard, but of course there's been lots of building and development over the years in Sydney, and they've had to build, and there's the railway line and things like that. So technically I'm working on the oldest graveyard in Sydney, which is super exciting. Nothing has happened. And at the same time, there's going to be a lot more work happening to this particular area as well. So once they start drilling down, I'm sort of so fingers crossed to see if we can, if there might be something left behind in this particular area as well. There used to be a chapel. And also I've heard there used to be an asylum, but I haven't got anyone to confirm that yet. So I want to have a look at plans and things like that. But because luckily for what I do for my work, I actually can have access to that information. So it's a little bit of excitement stuff there. So if there's any developments, I will let you know as well. So there's that too. Basically, there's other people who have posted comments as well with this particular question that have said, they felt that when they've gone into cemeteries, that when they've walked through, they felt that they couldn't walk into certain sections. So some people really do believe that there could be something to cemeteries being haunted. Others have felt that when they have been walking, that they felt there's been people behind them when they've been walking through as well. So that's something else people have also experienced too. When I was in Eastern Europe last year, we went through the oldest cemetery in Prague. And that was a beautiful experience, actually. It was just, I don't know that other people probably would agree with this as well. There's something rather peaceful about some cemeteries. I know some people might find that a bit macabre, but not for us, for them who are fascinated by the afterlife. But just walking through and just, everything was just so well kept and so beautifully done. And it didn't really matter the fact that I couldn't understand if any of the language that was there. It was just a beautiful experience to be able to walk through. And actually did, I think those of you who were around at the time saw the live video of me wandering through just, these, and just sort of giving a glimpse of the different types of headstones and stuff like that. So from that perspective, it can be quite an interesting thing. I didn't feel anything haunting in any way, shape or form. Oh, that was a thunderclap. Ah, damn. I talked over it. It was wonderfully haunting in the sense of the atmosphere, but definitely not from a spooky spiritual perspective. We were during the day, which is when it was visiting hours as well, so that's something also to keep in mind. Rob says, I find the history the best, and these locations are so relaxing to visit. Yeah, exactly. There's something wonderful about the history of the people that have passed on. I think it's important to understand and learn about the people that have been there and done that, and particularly local to your area as well. Not macabre at all. There's supposed to be a place of eternal rest. Well, you certainly feel it when you're there. Like, there are times where I could almost like call over and go to sleep. Not really, but you know what I mean. It's that kind of calm that comes with a particular location like that as well. So there's that too. Someone else had also said that whenever they actually do go to cemeteries, they find that they end up seeing a lot of entities there all the time. So there are some people who are very sensitive to energies and feel that they have mediumship abilities and psychic abilities. They actually feel that, it's a cemetery. Of course you're going to see something. I see something all the time, or I feel or sense something all the time. So we'll see something to keep in mind as well. I know that one person had said that the only active thing in a cemetery is your imagination. Again, that's something to keep in mind. which is probably going to lean more into the second part of the question, which was not just are they really haunted, but why the popular belief? Now, the popular belief, I think a lot of it has to do with Hollywood. I think Hollywood has a huge part, and the reason why we kind of have this kind of connotation of the fact that it's Pet Cemetery or something's going to come up from the ground, that wasn't buried properly or being buried alive, my worst fear ever, or anything like that. I think Hollywood has a lot to answer for. Thank you, Hollywood. You've ruined it again. Holy crap, I made it. Mel, it's so good to see you. You finally made it. Was a bit a year. So yeah, there's that too. So Hollywood has a lot to answer for, I think, a lot with the whole idea about cemeteries being haunted. I think a lot of people obviously will go to cemeteries. The whole point of them is the fact they will go there to want to be closer to their loved ones as well. I think the idea of, obviously being in the ground, being close, being nearby as well, I think that has something to play with it too. Obviously, a lot of people have said that it could just be a dumping ground for bodies. Of course, that's, why is it a popular belief? Well, it's just a place where people just literally go to actually have their last resting place, whether you choose to be buried and or cremated. A lot of other people have also mentioned that it's not somewhere that they would go to investigate, just because it's a place where bodies will actually just decay and there's no real connection with a body that's decaying if you're not connected to that particular person. So it's that's when we come into the whole ethics side of it, where there are tour groups that do run tours through cemeteries, and I know there are other people that are really against that because it is a sign of disrespect. So if there's somebody that's passed over that you really care about, love, and someone's sort of gawking at their headstone and looking at when they passed over or anything like that, I can see where that would come from as well. And another really important thing that has and does happen still, unfortunately, is that once somewhere is considered a hotspot of activity. So here in New South Wales, in Western Sydney, there's Sarah's grave, which is in sort of more towards the base of the mountains. It's a cemetery, from a cemetery there. It's had to be cornered off. It's had to be fenced off because so many people go there, saying they had so many sort of reactions and activity and stuff like that everybody and their dog is going to go there. So it gets too overpopulated, and people just either go there at times when they shouldn't be there, or like they do in certain parts of regional New South Wales, which I have been to as well, they'll actually end up trashing it because they go, oh, well, I'm bored, there's nothing else to do here, I'm just going to trash these places. So I've seen that here in regional New South Wales. I've also seen it in South Australia as well. So it's almost like there's a hot spot of activity in this particular cemetery, and then it just gets literally trashed because it just becomes too popular. So that's the other side. We need to set good examples as investigators to only go when we're meant to be going. Yeah, if it's during the day, oh look, it's not the spooky nighttime, but hey, let's explore the whole investigating in daytime theory. That hasn't been explored enough. Who's to say that energy doesn't just or people who've passed over don't just sort of lurk about at night? What about daytime as well? If it's 24/7, it's 24/7. So let's explore that from that angle and be respectful and have that kind of morality and ethics with our investigating as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Also as well, I notice sometimes when people do take photos of some headstones here and there, be really careful with that, because you might have somebody's family's name headstone that you've taken a photo of. I mean, there are different meanings for different headstones as well, which is a whole other talk altogether. But yeah, be really careful what you post on social media, what you share as well, because it could be somebody's loved one that you've taken a photo of their gravesite as well, and they may not be happy with that, and I can understand that as well. I can respect that as well. So, oh, hi, Damie. It's good to see you. Oh, hi, Sarah. Good to see you. So, yeah, there are a couple of things to keep on there. So, are they really haunted? Is it a haunted place? I think really it's up to the person's experience. Again, it's a very well-known training ground for people who just start out with paranormal investigating. And of course, people ask all at the same time, what's the idea? What's the popular belief? Well, there's somebody underneath that is dead. I think in our generation, maybe the generation before and afterwards, I'm kind of slightly showing my age, we haven't dealt with a lot of death. We haven't dealt with a lot of war and famine and disease as other previous generations before us. So, you know, to be able to be, this is the closest thing we have to something like this. So I think there's that fascination, you know, being around something that has passed over that, you know, again, as I said, it's free, it's an open public area. And that's where a lot of people tend to want to learn a bit about how to, you know, look at starting paranormal investigating. Hey, Jamie, cool. So, hey, Josh, good to see you, mate. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you think it's great that there are tours through cemeteries? Do you believe that cemeteries could be haunted? What do you think? Why do you actually think that cemeteries are popular for a place to be haunted? You know, where did the idea actually come from? Do you agree? Do you think, nah, it's terrible? Do you think it's we should never ever say anything about what sort of cemeteries are meant to be quite active and which ones aren't, and we should actually not go to cemeteries at all and find another way in which we can actually learn about possible paranormal activity or learning how to deal with it? So please let me know. Cemeteries are great for finding history of the area and the people, but there's absolutely, a lot of people saying history is great, you know, learning about the people that have passed over, but when it comes to actual paranormal stuff, don't do it, or it's not really a very moral and ethical way to be able to try and find it as well. So by all means, as I said, use the comment section down below. Also, when I post this up on YouTube too, I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Do take care. Until next week. Thanks, guys.